Okay, guys, so we're gonna be a little bit salty today and spend some time ripping Joe Rogan to shreds. And I think it's fair to do so because a lot of people have called him out for exhibiting some bullyish behavior. If you watch his show, you'll definitely come to notice he doesn't respect all of his guests equally, we'll put it like that. And he's definitely guilty of keeping a few friends around just to have someone to put down to validate his self-perceived alpha persona. So today we have a clip that maybe you've seen before where he puts down his former sidekick Brian Redban when they talk about Bill Burr's theory that an hour a year of material isn't that hard to put out because you should be able to come up with 10 minutes a month according to him. Let's roll it.
Had a really good point about writing, too. He's like, you should be able to come up with an hour a year because really all that is 10 minutes a month.
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that's another guy just watching him, just working shit out. It's fucking brilliant.
10 minutes a month is 120 minutes a year. 12 months, 10 minutes a month, 120 minutes a year.
I do about that.
Yeah, you don't do
8
that.
to 10. You haven't seen me in a while.
Stop your fucking lying.
Alright, so he definitely comes out hard with the disrespect right away. First of all, I have to say this is kind of a ridiculous topic to even debate anyways, because as someone who does stand-up himself, I can tell you it's really not that hard to make an audience laugh that's paid money and come out expecting and wanting to laugh. So it's definitely about quality, not quantity. So you can definitely come up with 10 minutes a month, but what kind of 10 minutes are we talking about here? Are we talking about 10 minutes of Brian Redban and Joe Rogan material, or 10 minutes of Dave Chappelle level material? Because you can come up with as much material as you want and still never come up with a joke as good as some of the greats do. But anyways, I love how disrespectful and doubtful Joe Rogan is being to his supposed friend for claiming he does what Joe Rogan was just arguing shouldn't be that hard to do 2 seconds ago. He's like, you should be able to come up with 10 minutes a month. It's not that hard. I think I do about that. Bitch, you don't do that. Alright, let's get back to it.
Yeah, you have some good ideas.
Okay, so right away, Joe is just declaring himself as the superior comedian in the room by making himself the arbitrator of how good someone else's ideas are. And if you have a goal and a dream, I have nothing against people thinking that way about themselves internally to keep you motivated, but you should keep that attitude in here because at the end of the day, it's not for you to say how good you are, it's for the audience to say. And most people in the comments are not too keen on him being one of the top comedians. The general consensus out there is that he has a good podcast, but he's a pretty average comic, and he makes himself look silly by doing this.
But, the reality of bits is they're never done. You got to keep chopping away at them and editing them. And so what you say is like 45 minutes. It's really 15. It's 15 monster minutes. That's what, when I have an hour.
Especially when you're bombing.
If I have an hour, I don't really have an hour. If I have an hour, I have 25 minutes of murder.
Again, he has 25 minutes of murder, he declares. This is what he got called out for the most on in the comments. Everyone was like, slow down there, buddy. And this declaration he makes on his own behalf becomes relevant later on in the conversation, because he's going to keep crapping on Brian for bragging when in reality he's just trying to stick up for himself from Joe Rogan's disrespect.
Right.
And I can turn that into an hour.
Read the way.
Or I can chop it into an assassinating 25 minutes.
Yeah,
and then sometimes extend.
Joe, you haven't seen me in a long time.
I'm sure you got way better and probably the greatest comedian ever now.
No, I'm just saying you don't even know my
I saw
material.
you 2 weeks ago, bitch.
No, you didn't.
I saw you at the Ice House.
Yeah,
did
you
a set.
saw me, but you didn't see me do my set.
Oh, son of a bitch.
You saw audience members yelling out subjects to him.
Like as an example.
I got the report back from the American Comedy Company.
Oh.
I got the report.
Oh, cool. I did awesome.
Yeah, I heard you did good.
I did really good.
I did awesome!
Man, what a jerk. Can you imagine how he'd react to someone if they talked to him like this? I saw you 2 weeks ago, bitch. And he's sarcastically saying, I'm sure you're probably the greatest comedian ever now. Brian never said anything like that here. He just said he comes up with about 10 minutes a month, which again is a silly topic to even debate because not all material is created equal to begin with. And the way he's making fun of his voice going up, like with the whole, I did awesome! Brian's voice is just going up like that because he's feeling defensive from Joe's put-downs.
I really did.
I did awesome. I believe you.
No, I did. Yeah, if you don't believe me, ask Justin.
I said I believed you.
So
I
anyway,
heard Sunday night was a little rough.
Alright, see, that little comment right there is one of the cornerstones of a toxic friend to watch out for me. Yeah, but I heard Sunday was a little rough. Can you imagine being so insecure that you can't hear a friend tell you about a good thing that happened to them without reminding them of something negative? I can't relate to that in any way, shape, or form.
oh, my guest sets? The guest sets were different. I'm in front of Brian Callen's crowd.
I just said I heard Sunday night was a little rough.
I just said I heard Sunday was a little rough. I'm just trying to bring you down after you try to bring yourself back up after I told you what you're capable of.
Yeah, okay, Joe. So you know when there's somebody there to see you, and then if there's somebody, other comic just comes on stage that's not their crowd, you know it's going to be a little weird sometimes when you mix certain crowds with certain people.
Well, if people don't know you.
Exactly.
And I think with you, like we've already talked about this before, you get this Willy Wonka golden ticket where people already know you when you're starting out. And
Right.
there's pressure in
that's-
that, and then it's also easier that way too.
Another passive-aggressive remark telling him he got the Willy Wonka golden ticket. It's as if Joe thinks he got famous from his stand-up rather than getting the lucky break of getting chosen to host Fear Factor.
That's the beautiful thing about performing for people that don't know you. You know, one of the good things about doing like pop-in shows, one thing that a lot of comics like to do is they like to go up on a show where people are not coming to see them, because that way they'll get a more honest reaction.
Sure.
And sometimes it'll make you cultivate your bits for a new mind or for a new ear. You know, someone who hasn't seen your stuff before.
But I also did 5 shows in the weekend, and all of them were amazing sets. So amazing that the owner of the club wrote a 3-page letter
greatest.
recommending me to
Brian,
other clubs.
don't brag, please. It's so gross.
Alright, now I can admit Brian's being annoying here, but you also have to look at the context of the full conversation to see how we got here. And I'm definitely not some Brian Redban fan, can you imagine? There's plenty of annoying qualities about him people don't like, and justifiably so, but I feel like that's why Joe kept him around so long. I think he was an easy target for him to put down and push himself up. Which is probably why he feels insecure and needs to bully him when he says something went well. Which is the whole reason Brian is bragging on his own behalf now in the first place.
No, but you're just saying
I hear
you're pretty
it's
much
doing
online.
good,
Just said, "Hey,
but
you
you're
did
just-
shitty
No,
in
I
San
didn't
Diego."
say you did shitty.
That's what you were
Look,
saying.
what I was going to say is I heard Sunday night was rough for not just you. It was rough for a lot of other people too.
No, you weren't going to say that, or that's what you would have said. He knows he's being a jerk, and he's rewriting the conversation now. A classic diversion of responsibility and another cornerstone of a toxic friend. And even then, if that's what you were gonna say, why even say that? Why would you need to bring up a show that everyone had a rough set? Sounds like that means it was just generally a tough audience that night, and you'd let that one go. It's like it doesn't count if everyone does bad. Why do you need to bring that up if a friend lets you know that they had a good set? You know what I say to a friend who tells me he did well at something? Cool, man. You're good at what you do. That doesn't surprise me to hear. I've got no need to be insecure and say, yeah, but I heard the other time wasn't so great. I actually want to see my friends do well and build them up. Amazing concept, I know.
Right?
It was.
Those shows, they can be rough. Those are good for you. I like
Oh,
a
dude,
good rough
nothing will
set.
make you stronger than just eating dick for 25 minutes.
A good rough set is not
Ugh.
bad.
But mine wasn't
But I
even
heard you
that
did
rough.
very well. But Callan said you did very well. But it's kind of gross to like brag about the owner saying he did so awesome.
No, I was just saying that I did good this
It
weekend.
is.
Not really. I like to brag to my friends about something good that happened to me occasionally, and I like to hear them brag to me. If you can't brag to your friends, who can you brag to? It's really just being supportive of each other. It's totally normal. And the only reason he felt the need to brag in the first place is because you literally called him a bitch and put down his skills at what he's trying to dedicate his life to.
I believe you, but you know.
And a lot of my set, you're saying I only have a 15-minute set. You haven't seen me do any of my set
I didn't
for
say
probably
you only
2
have
months.
a 15-minute set. I said if you say you have 50 new minutes, you really have 45 minutes means, in my eyes, 15 minutes. It means like you chop out a half an hour always, because how much of it is your best stuff? How much of it is stuff that you're really happy with? How much of it needs to be edited down? That's just how I look at material, period. And that's what I said about myself. If I have an hour, I don't have an hour. I have 25 minutes of murder. Right. That's what you have. You chop things up, and as you build up more time, like that's why the difference between right after you release a special, the new hour that you work on, in the beginning, man, if it's an hour, it might only be like 15 minutes that you really love. You know, it might be like a lot of other stuff that you're like ham and egging and song and dancing. And then as time goes on, you start stacking and adding, and then it becomes something that you're really proud of. That's the process you haven't gone through yet. You haven't gone through the editing process. You haven't gone through the process of creating an hour, chopping it down, eliminating certain bits, and then stretching it out to a real legit beginning to end professional hour.
All right, this to me is another cornerstone of a toxic friend to me, and it's a huge blood boiler for me personally. I cut people like this out of my life right away. When they try to tell you about you like that, you're going to tell me what I've done and what I'm capable of? I've got no room for people who think they can tell me about me like that in my life. Screw those people, man. Seriously.
It takes a lot of work.
I have about an hour, 20 minutes now. So I would say I have, like what you're saying.
Joe's face.
Well, I mean,
why would that comment even bother him so much? That he has an hour and 20 minutes? Like, you know, get over yourself, dude. If the conversation that you started bothers you so much, just say, all right, well, let's stop personalizing it. Sorry if I said something to make you feel defensive. Let's move on now.
As an example, here's a bit I know. I have a dolphin bit that I can do a 13-minute thing, an 8-minute thing, or a 5-minute thing. When I do the 5-minute thing, it's like me rushing it, the whole thing, and
well, you shouldn't rush anything. You don't have to rush it.
The 7 or 8-minute one is a good edited version, but the 13-minute one is more like free. It's kind of like one of your old school bits, you know, where it's like very comfortable to be in this playground, and when I go to the joke to the joke to the tag, it's very comfortable doing the 13-minute one. But I do all three, like every week I do at least one of those different versions, but it's always the 13 one that's really like, all right, that's the one that you need to do. But so I have censored and edited different bits. It just depends on the show, how much time I have.
Okay, look, Brian, we all have different standards of editing, and we all have different what we think are, you know, legit bits and what we think are not legit bits. And when I think is a legit bit and you think is a legit bit, it's probably going to be very different.
Now we get to the real sauce of what he wants to say. What I think is legit and you think is legit is different. Just a thin veil away from coming out to say what he really wants everyone to know. I'm a better comedian than you. This guy has spent so much of his career criticizing up-and-coming comics for their material to convince himself that his fame is his earned right and not a fluke. And he really doesn't have that original material himself. His last special, I saw him make this joke where he says girls show cleavage, so guys should start walking around with the top half of their dick exposed and call it tubage. Tell me that you haven't heard every 7th grader in America try to make that exact same joke. Girls show the top of their boobs, so we should show the top of our penis. It's been done before, buddy, by everybody.
I don't want to judge your material, and I want to sit and break down your act and tell you what you should or shouldn't do.
Really? Because have you been listening to yourself?
But people have a problem when you start saying how this is awesome, and you did so great.
Not secure people, Mr. 25 Minutes of Murder.
No,
and everybody wants
had great shows, is what I'm saying.
The club owners writing letters for you, and you haven't seen me. I'm doing awesome now. I saw you recently. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. You did Vancouver with me. That was a couple of months ago. That's not that long ago.
Vancouver?
Yeah. Did a theater in Vancouver. It wasn't that long ago.
August. Yeah, 4 months ago.
Exactly. It's a few months ago.
All right, again, Joe's going to change the subject here, and Brian does redirect the conversation back to the argument that Joe started, which is annoying. I'm definitely not saying Brian's behavior is perfect in this scenario. I'm far from a Brian Redban fan, but he should just let this go and address it with him after the show. Really, he shouldn't even be friends with somebody like this in the first place. But let's roll it because Brian does get kind of annoying here.
You ever a bit just not work for no reason? It just stops working? Like a book just kills all it just stops?
Yeah, for sure. If you don't feel like it's you could have a bit that you don't feel like it works anymore. Like it's not funny to you anymore.
Right.
Like it might have worked.
And Joe, I did good in Vancouver. What are you talking about?
I didn't say anything about you doing in Vancouver.
I just
Brian,
saw you
stop
in
like
Vancouver.
making this about you, man. Come on.
I don't know why you're thinking I'm making it about you.
You just changed the subject. We were talking about creating bits, and out of nowhere, you're like, I did good in Vancouver. You exactly made it about you.
I'm not trying to talk about myself,
You
man. I'm
just did. You just
did.
did.
You started this by saying that I had a report back in San Diego, so
No.
I know how good you did.
No, it started by you telling me how great everything went.
I had a good set.
And that's when I said I heard that Sunday night was kind of rough.
Bingo! Joe's right here. That is when it started. I don't know why he thinks he's right for bringing up a rough set after Brian said he had a good one after Joe called him a bitch. But his account of this is pretty much right. It's just his perception of his behavior is really distorted. Because at this point, yes, it's distasteful for the conversation to go on so long about Brian, but it wouldn't have had to happen in the first place without Joe putting him down like this. Brian is being a bit annoying and clearly defensive, but understandably, to be fair.
I heard it was rough.
Right.
It wasn't just rough for you. It was rough for other people.
Okay, but
It was a weird
you
show.
were looking at me and saying, I heard it was rough.
Tell the
and
truth. When
applying
it's
that
rough,
was
I
me.
tell the truth.
All right.
When I have a rough show, I tell the truth. I don't just
Yo.
tell you everything's great. I tell you
ate
about
a
one
dick in
shitty
Vegas
show.
the other night for 30 minutes
Where were you?
straight.
You know, having a rough
Where
set,
were
though,
you?
is getting booed.
I was doing the Dirty at 12:30 show, which is it's Southport Casino.
I like this guest. You can tell he might have come from a troubled home because this whole scenario definitely has the vibe of coming over to your friend's house while their parents are arguing, and he's definitely handling it like someone with experience. So at this point they change the subject for a while, and then Joe comes right back to it this time, doing the same thing he was so pissed at Brian for doing just a few moments ago.
I want to fucking jump off
Jump
a
off a
bridge.
You ever quit on
Joe,
stage?
I walked
Like, all right,
up.
this is it.
Oh, really? Yeah, I
Show.
quit.
I'm always
no,
like
never
mentally in my
quit
head.
like
I'm
this is my
fuck
last.
this.
It's a wild thing to do with your time, man. Come up with some shit that you think is going to make people laugh. There's a distasteful feeling in this room. Feel it? Got a little carried away over there, Brian.
Sorry.
It's all right, buddy.
And we've come full circle to see gaslighting at its best. Throughout this conversation, Brian never says one single rude thing to Joe, but Joe calls him a bitch several times, mocks him when he tries to defend himself, sarcastically calls him the best comedian ever to make him look like some kind of a jackass, when he just said he had a good set. And for some reason, Brian is now apologizing to Joe, and Joe's telling him it's alright, when by the way, he was fired from the show shortly after this. Brian's not the only friend Joe's done this to. He's ridiculed several of his own guests. Mike Goldberg should be commentating for the UFC still, but Joe would take every opportunity he could to make him look like a horse's dick. If you really want to stay in Joe's good graces today, you need to make like the only friends he surrounds himself. Nothing but sycophants like this Tony Hinchcliffe guy. Check out this clip.
Act people is because if people give something to someone else and they don't give it to them, they have a real sense of fairness. Wow. Yeah, there's a famous story of this guy who had a pet chimp. So you have this thing that's not a dog, it's not a person. It's this weird in-between thing. It's an animal. So you can't do that to chimps. For whatever reason, you can't do that to chimps.
You can't neuter a chimp.
So this guy goes to visit the chimp, and he brings a birthday cake. Happy birthday, buddy. And the other chimps that are in cages right next to it are like, this motherfucker didn't bring me a cake? I can't believe this shit. So they figure out a way to get out, and they got out, and they attacked the man, and they tore him apart. They tore his face off. They tore his dick off. They tore his feet off. They bit his fingers off. It's one of the most horrific, cruel attacks you'll ever hear of. So this guy, it's a famous case. Like this, you can see the pictures if you want to see the pictures
Of the cake guy?
of the guy who got his face ripped apart and fingers bitten off.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, he was in
I'd love
hospital.
to. That sounds great.
He's trying so hard not to sound sarcastic as he listens to his babbling nonsense. But that's what it takes to gain the clout of the Joe Rogan Experience. You just gotta open wide and